you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting something different to happen. We
Right.
know what that is. You have to do something that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to ask advice. Hey, why not ask a relationship coach?
Exactly. Right.
You want to save yourself months or years of going in circles and circles and confusion and not meeting anybody. Come to a relationship coach who
Right.
can help you in days or weeks change
Yep.
things that don't work. And but people have to get their egos out of the way. Hey, what do businesses do when they run into a problem, when they're not making enough money in a certain part of their business? They call in an expert.
They call a consultant. Yeah,
They don't
absolutely.
waste their time
No, right.
wondering what to do and how to do it. What are we doing wrong? No, they invite
Right.
someone in, an unbiased person in, to tell them what they're doing and then what they can do to remedy it. It's the same
Yep.
thing with relationships.
Yeah.
Why not have a relationship coach?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are watching or listening. This is the Holistic Monitor, and I'm your host, Nick Sconia. The Holistic Monitor is a wellness podcast featuring life energy research, health and wellness transformation, self-improvement and empowerment, philosophy, spirituality, and now guest interviews as well. We look forward to your comments on our YouTube channel at Holistic Monitor, and you can also listen on the go with us at Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and more. And with that, let's get today's show started. All right, Bruce Starr, you're a book writer. Is that correct? An author?
I've written 2 books.
Two
Uh,
books.
now, it's been a lifelong dream to actually write. I've written a book before. It's been like an ebook years ago, but I just didn't think that I could write a book, a paperback book or a hardcover book. So, in the last few months, I have worked with Amazon and published 2 of my books. One of them took 30 years
Wow.
to complete, and the other 2 years.
Wow. How about that? So once you did the 30-year one, you were kind of ready to go?
It was, well, I'll tell you how it started. In the early 90s, there was something called America Online. Not
Hmm.
too many of you guys know America
Oh,
Online.
yeah.
It was the first very social internet app. I mean, everybody, when they found it, they just went nuts because you can speak real time in a room
Right.
to people. And a Hollywood buddy of mine, when I was visiting him, I used to be in the entertainment industry out in LA. He said to me, "What are you doing now?" I said, "Well, I'm a relationship coach." He says, "Oh." He turned his monitor around and he showed me, ever hear America Online? I said, "What's that?" He showed me this thing. I don't even know what I was looking at. He said, "When you go home back to South Florida, open up a room and you could talk to people all over the country." I
Yeah.
said, "Okay." And I did it. I opened up a room called Relationship Coaching.
Hmm.
And 10 years later, I had over 6,000 detailed, intimate, documented conversations
Wow.
with people from around the country. And I did it to originally, help them. And I did. I mean, believe me, I was helpful and they would come back and ask for more information. And a lot of people were helped. But what blew me away was what I learned by listening to their stories
Hmm.
and what they were telling me about their relationships and about love. And I took a lot of those stories that I had with them and I put it into this book. Originally, the book was called Body Traders.
Hmm.
Never heard of that before. It freaks people out sometimes. They think it's trafficking or whatever.
Oh.
And just in the last week or so, I'm changing the name because I need to I'm changing it to, let me see, what did I change it to? The, well, I'll think of it in a second.
Yep.
But it's about what happens to so many of us that get their hearts broken when they're 15, 16, 17, 18.
Mm.
Did you have your heart broken?
Oh yeah.
So, I'm
I'm a
not making
veteran.
this up, that guys don't recover.
Right.
The girls have people to talk to. They have their mothers, they have their cousins, their sisters, their aunts.
Right. A
You and I,
different support system
who
in
are we going to
place.
talk to?
Right.
We're going to go to the gym and say, hey, Tony, I got my heart broken. My girl told me I was a lousy lover. And that's not going to happen, right? We're not going to spill the beans to anybody. So it stays in. So what happens is if we get our heart broken and we want to remain social, we think of other things that we go after rather than love. So for guys, stereotypically, it's a sexy girl, a pretty face. And ladies, stereotypically, not true for everybody. Does the guy have enough money? Does he have the house, the car that I want to be driven around in, and all that kind of stuff? So they become what used to be called horse traders. If you have enough of what I want, I'll give you what I have.
Right.
We call it body traders.
Right.
And this is what probably 90% of all single people are doing right now. They don't want to admit it, but they are.
Right.
And they're too afraid to go for love, and they pick for other reasons other than how does he make me feel? How does she make me feel? It's we're in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah.
In the way we're dating, and this book will help people find. The book is called Lost Souls, getting back to love. And that's what we have to do. You know what? We were born natural lovers. When we were a day old and a year old and 10 years old, everything was about love and goo goo gaga. Parents loved us. We loved our parents. But we've gone away from the very basics, and it's hurting the whole society.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a lot to the online dating. Of course, that's, all the rage. And for a lot of people, they get really tired of it and they say, you know what, I want to just find somebody the old fashioned way, which is really just stumbling upon somebody out in the wild, at work or wherever, rather than go through the dating apps.
The problem with internet dating is, so we talked about you get your heart broken. But when we were 15, 16, 17, 18, we came with a whole pie. I call it an apple pie. Here's my apple pie. Take all of me. I trust you. I love you. If you get your heart broken, you're lucky if you give half of that pie to the next person.
Yeah.
And if someone screws around with you after that, you're down to giving a sliver. And that's when people go to the internet.
Right.
They're offering a sliver of themselves. I'd say 98 out of 100 are doing it that way. It's not that the internet, there's nothing wrong with the internet. It's the people and how they approach the internet.
What they're giving up, basically, to the internet.
Yeah, because, listen, just because something is new, there's people say, but Mr. Starr, that's that old, you're talking about old ways of going into relationships. Say, how's that new way working for you?
Right.
And 10,000 of your friends.
Yeah. Well, because you offer a sliver, you offer a section, but you're only going to offer so much to the internet, to an unknown. It's not very personal. You're offering kind of a mask, online.
Absolutely.
Versus really an authentic expression of yourself. When you meet somebody, there is an exchange of energy there that's very can be very cohesive or abrasive, and you just don't know. I did the dating apps for a little while, and I did find that I would know within 5 minutes if there was collaborative energy. Now that could shift and change, but typically I would know pretty quick, like this isn't puzzle pieces aren't working,
Well, you're lucky you're in touch with that part of you. Right. And that's, the holistic show that we're doing now, which is great. imagine all the people that are approaching relationships intellectually, what
Right.
they think about relationships, because they're not too afraid to come from here.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
Right.
what they think about relationships. And that's what, thinking about love is very different than feeling love.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely. And that's my advice too, is also to go out and don't look for it. Let it happen. Let it find you. It'll be more correct. It'll line up better that way, rather than seeking something, especially through the internet, which that, like I said, there's just a wall of the impersonal that you have to get through, which can be fun, and something of an adjustment for people to get used to chatting to meet people. Um,
Honest
and
conversation. That's what the
yeah,
foundation was.
yeah, being honest, yeah, without expectation. I think that's my biggest advice to anybody in really anything, even relationships, but it can go into any part of your life, is to begin to approach any situation without an expectation for a return. Go in as authentic as possible.
That's
You
right.
know,
You have to do it in a way that honesty is at the foundation. Because I
right.
think the biggest complaint that people have that go on the internet is that when they show up, the person is 20 or 30 pounds heavier, 10 or 20 years older and
Right.
bald and
Right.
fat. And I say to my, why do people bother? I mean, do you think you're so spectacular
Right.
that when you finally meet, no matter what you look like, because you had a couple of conversations,
Yeah.
it's like a no-brainer. You're so good that they're just going to love you anyway. No, you
Doesn't work
can't
that
you
way.
can't dishonesty.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in person, there is again that dynamic energy exchange that you get to feel somebody, and it's less of that intellectual, like you were saying. You
For
know.
10,000 years, it was one way. I mean,
Right.
Fred Flintstone, the way he did it, went on for thousands of years, and
How did he do it?
he and Wilma did pretty good together.
Yeah.
They raised a family and they had a dog, and
Right. Right.
she ran the house, and he went to work every day and made the money.
Right.
And listen, it's I learned from a fantastic mentor and teacher of mine. Her name is Dr. Pat Allen,
Yeah.
and she's out in Los Angeles, and she works with. She goes and teaches at a movie theater in Santa Monica or West LA. Every week, she travels up from Orange County,
Hmm.
and she fills the movie theater with actors, actresses, agents, casting directors, head of studios
Hmm.
who bought the idea that if they make as much money as possible, if they're as powerful as there is can be, that they'll meet the right person.
Hmm.
And they found out that wasn't happening. And I spent some number of years out in Los Angeles. What I found was that if I wasn't a successful agent or a producer, whoever was being nice to me, as soon as they found out I wasn't that,
Right.
hello, where'd they go?
Right. 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 The body trade.
You don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
enough of what they want, it ain't going to
Right.
happen.
Or
And
life
it's a
exchange.
it's a vicious uh, it's a vicious situation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether people want to admit it, every time they get rejected, it's a dagger, and
Oh, yeah.
that sliver gets less and less. So they really need to, if they're a lost soul, and that's what I call them,
Hmm.
if they're a lost soul, they've run out of soul and they're just working up here. They're going to have to find ways to fill themselves without that going out, without that
Right.
searching, like you're saying. Meditation, uh, yoga classes, being in nature, going to the beach, anything, hug trees,
Right.
stand in the grass, anything to get back to starting to feel whole again and not so desperate to think that your life can only be happy if someone's giving you stuff and making you feel good.
Right.
It's not about that at all. And it's going to be a nasty thing when people wake up to that realization that it's all about love. And it's
Yeah.
you can't give something away until you have it. You have to have something before you could give it away.
Right.
So it's really all about self-love and learning to love yourself. And only then are you going to be able to really hit a home run and get what you want from this world.
Yeah. Now, is that in the book that you work through that?
Absolutely.
Instructions and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it used to be called Body Traders. Now it's such a new title. The Lost Soul Guide to Love. I believe that's the new title. And that's what it is. It talks about every which way that people do it wrong. And then, the last third of the book is here's how you can get it right and get back to the one thing. There's nothing else more important than love. I mean,
right.
we in the 60s, it was like psychedelic drugs that we did to find ourselves.
Yeah.
And in the 70s, we went wild with sex. I was there. We went wild with thinking that was the answer. And then the 80s, we started thinking that money was the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I tell you, every time we keep looking for something outside of ourselves, out there in the world, we keep getting more and more disappointed. And all you have to do is look at now, all the people, what does 1% have all the money now?
Yeah.
Maybe
well,
1.5%.
Yeah,
and everybody else is struggling. So It's because we're off on the wrong path. And we need some teachers and healers to get us going back in the right direction.
Yeah.
By the way, can I tell people that the book can be found at Amazon?
Right.
I have two books. One's called Body Traders for now, but it's Lost Soul's Guide to Love. And that one's more for the adults. Then I wrote a book, being a school teacher here and there. I wrote a book for teenagers that actually in the voice of a teenage girl who had no clue about relationships. And the problem these days is that broken families, no father there.
Right.
And when there's no father, the mother's working 2 or 3 jobs. What is that? Where does that leave the young daughter? When she needs vital information and coaching and parental guidance? It's just missing now. Yeah. And so I felt very motivated to write this book. And it's a fiction, but it's based on non-fictional information. A girl meets a guy at a park. It's clean. They're feeding birds. Mm-hmm. And after several weeks, they start talking. And he becomes a coach to her, a relationship coach. She gets to ask him every and any question that she has about relationships as a 13-year-old, as a 14-year-old, as a 15-year-old. So this book literally has every common answer to every question a young teen would have. And I know this book is eventually going to sell 1 million copies.
Yeah. Yeah. So young reader, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it right as a young reader, then they're going to have to read Body Traders.
Lost Soul's Guide to Love.
Yes.
Finding Love.
Yeah. and the
working title.
teen book was called Her Teen Love Coach. And,
okay.
It's so much in the beginning. I'm asking advice and counsel. And, and some really good people that I know said, make it more personal. Yeah. So I'm working on that title right now, and it has to do with Gen C's Guide to Love. I think that's what it's called now. Gen C is the young teenage girl.
Oh, okay.
Initiation to Love. Gen C's Initiation to Love. The titles are so fresh in my mind.
Yeah. But that's good. Well, you have a link, right? We can put in the description for you for the show, so that people can find the books out on your website.
Yes, they can find the books on the website, but at Amazon, if they click on books and they put my name, Bruce Starr, Starr, they'll find the books.
Okay.
But my website is theopenheartmovement.com, theopenheartmovement.com.
Okay.
And my email is lovecoach, LUVcoach1 at gmail.com. And people can, if they watch your show, I'm going to offer them a free 15-minute consultation if they mention your show.
Okay.
If they
Great.
email me and they say they heard us talking on your show, I'd be glad to talk to anybody about their relationships, and then get to know me that way also.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'll put that in the description as well. Are you using with the book that you wrote for the young adult? Are you using? You said some of it was actual stories and information that you had heard.
The actual stories came in my Body Traders,
Okay.
the Lost Souls. I took the conversations that I had online, those 6,000, and the most intriguing ones I put into the book. The teen book, being around kids, and here's what really motivated me to write this book. I would see 12-year-old girls who look like 21.
Mm-hmm.
A 21-year-old girl would give anything to look like this girl. But she was still 12 years old. And the problems are that they are, the few that I saw that really bothered me was that they were putting it out there that, they were interested in being with older boys.
Right.
And I don't have to tell you, they think it's really cool. But that's a formula for disaster.
Right.
The 12-year-old can barely navigate, can navigate very little. They might not like me saying this, but you don't have the tools that you have at 18 or 28. And if you flaunt what you have at 12, and older guys can't even tell how old you are, you're probably going to fib to them. It's just a bad situation.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote this book. I don't want to see 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-old girls going after 18, 19, 20, 25, 30-year-old
for the
men.
experience, right?
It's cool and it makes them look popular, but it's a formula for disaster.
And that's more for the experience, or to find somebody that has the experience. And so that way they can kind of be guided, almost a surrogate parent.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this book will serve as a surrogate parent for them.
Yeah.
But everybody should have someone that they could talk to.
Right.
And like we talked about in the very beginning of the show, guys.
Yeah, they don't have it. Not typically. And that's a social thing. Guys are supposed to be strong. And they're supposed to not show emotions.
So they have to eat all their emotions, and it just stays in there festering. And I hear so many women say, "Why are men so retarded? What's wrong with men?"
Yeah,
this is why.
Right. It's that social structure that's not there typically.
Yeah.
Right.
They really, they say alcoholics stop growing the moment that they really turn to alcohol on a regular basis. Maybe it was 12, 13, 14, 15. They really don't grow emotionally or spiritually when they start drinking.
Right.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with this. They get their hearts broken, and they don't pursue life in a way that will help them grow and learn and be more productive.
Yeah.
I can spend all day talking about masculine and feminine energy. That 10,000 years, men had a masculine energy. They were aggressive. They were assertive. They had to go out there into the world and either earn money or bring back the saber-toothed tiger, or whatever the food was. And the woman had an equally tough job of taking care of the home, taking care of the children, making sure everything was in order. And you know what? There was no one person more powerful than the other, but it created a tremendous balance. Now what we have is women have gotten so masculine in nature and so aggressive and so assertive. Nothing wrong with that in business, although I'm not so sure about that. But it doesn't work in relationships. And what it's done, it's upset the whole ball of wax. And what do I mean by that? If women have gotten assertive and aggressive, I remember when I went out to LA and I was being assertive and aggressive because that's the way I was. And these girls couldn't wait to get away from me.
Right.
They wanted to be the ones to pick the guy out. They wanted to be the ones to direct things. They were the masculine aggressive. But how does that really screw things up for men? We realize that if we're going to get anything at all, if we're going to get any action at all, we're going to have to sit back and be what? Feminine and receptive
Right.
to them. Now, guys say, hey, I love it when girls come up to me and I love it when yeah, that's true. But there's something missing that they're not thinking about. If they come up to you, they're making it known that you can score and you can have what you want. Does that mean you really like them?
Right.
That mean you love them like you would if you pursued them? No. It means that you're taking the easy way out and you'll take an easy, jump in the sheets because it's being offered to you. But are you going to take that girl home to mom and dad and say, here's the love of my life? Probably not, because you didn't pick that person out. They picked you out. And that's not even the worst of it.
Right.
When eventually that aggressive masculine woman is going to say, why don't you get off your butt? And why don't you get that job you're looking for? Why don't you go out and make more money? And he's going, but that's what you liked about me in the first place. So
yeah, it's an imbalance. Yeah. And that's it's a social thing. So we would look at society and culture. Are we seeing that in other cultures? Are there any other countries that would be in the similar sphere of this issue, this dilemma of unhappiness in relationships
absolutely.
that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe in the third world countries,
okay,
where they're not watching so much TV, where they're not watching our movies, and they're not so terribly influenced by this upsetting world that we're in. Maybe things have not changed so much for them, but in the sophisticated countries,
it's all of them. Is it okay? And do you think it's purely I was listening to another podcast, and unfortunately can't remember what the name of it was, but they were talking about how there was this doctrine or trade-off to for women's equality to get them into the workforce that changed the dynamic at home quite a bit. We're having two working incomes into the home. So, I can see that being like a power struggle of sorts.
there you go.
From the dynamic of, like, say, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, where it was mostly the man in charge of the household. But really, if you look at it, the woman was really in charge of the household. She took care of everything that was going on.
The most powerful person. Why they want to change that from being the most powerful to coming down here wanting to be the equal thing. That here's the problem with equality, and you were just getting to it. There's a battle there.
Right. And everybody's situation is very different. In generalization, we're losing a lot of people in the conversation because we're generalizing this whole scenario. But the setup that it was before, as my dad said, was like the wife is at home, she's taking care of the family, she's the manager of the business, and the guy, he's like the salesman. He goes out and brings home the money. He brings home, the resource, basically.
Enough for the whole family.
Right. And at that time, it was enough. It was easy for a single income. It's definitely not. We're not in that world, unfortunately, with the monetary situation. It costs a lot more to buy a house, so therefore the mortgage costs more. The income hasn't hardly gone up, if you look at it.
The breakup of the family unit. And there's powers out there, there's forces out there that want that to happen.
Right. Well, and that, yeah, and in that change and dynamic of the regular or norm of what the old world, we could call it, pattern of the family dynamic, that change didn't adjust. It basically just equalized the incomes. It didn't adjust it so that there was two big incomes coming in. It made it so that it was just two as if one income
Yeah,
coming in. So it was
very good
forcing,
observation.
yeah,
And the
forcing both
prices
people to
kept
work.
going up, and everybody wanted more and more.
Right.
And look at that, we're underwater.
Yeah. Minimum wage is 750, something like that. You can't live on 750 an hour. Um, but there's also a lot of depending on where you're at in, or staying USA centric. There's a lot of areas, places like cities where you have a lot of single people living. You have a woman that's basically doing everything. She's doing the work. She's providing for her household. She's doing all the work. Um, and she's able to do that maybe because the resources are grander. There's more access to services available to help. The single men doing the same exact thing, taking care of the household, doing the work, all one person. It's when you add the dynamic of a relationship that you get this switch out, and then an
Problem.
expectation. Maybe there's an expectation for the guy thinking, well, if she works, I don't have to work, and vice versa. And in that switch out, I think that's where you start to get the unhappiness, because in our culture that we have developed, the woman can be assertive and can be a go-getter and have her career and do these things that is, bringing in more money than the man. The guy can be docile or passive, and not make as much money, or not do as much to make money or something like that. It's just we're in a different, very interesting cultural and societal change as far as relationships and the norm that you would think of the last century, you know.
Yeah, you remember Pat Allen? I told you about Pat Allen. She's a lady. All right.
Okay.
She's an 85, maybe now she's 90.
Yeah.
And she would explain to these people that went and made all the money that they can handle, all the fame, all the fortune.
Right.
They were alone.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
bought
Yeah.
it, they bought the ticket, and they're
Right.
alone.
Well, I think that's there's an expectation for having something as a cure. And in relationships, I think there's so much collaboration and partnership and need for an allowance for each party to provide something, a positive to the
That's
partnership.
equity.
Yeah.
That's equity, not equality.
Right.
Not equality, equity. Here's strengths, here's strengths.
Right.
You're
It's a
strong
balance.
here, you're strong here. There's no battle.
Right.
It's cherishing and respecting what the other person has and not
Right.
fighting over power to run the family.
Right. Now, of course, you can flip that and say, well, then that's fine if in that case that the woman is very happy and fine being assertive and doing the main job and wants a more passive man, then that dynamic works really well if the
It
man
works for
also
a
wants to be
while.
passive. Yeah.
It works for a while.
Right.
And then she gets frustrated with him because she is subconsciously falling back into what worked for 10,000 years.
Right.
She all of a sudden wants to return to that. I'm saying 9 out of 10 times that's going to happen
Yeah.
because she's not going to be happy with a wimpy boy at
Right.
home being a boy toy that she can have at her disposal.
Right.
It's just not human nature to be happy and satisfied with that.
Right. And I say the undercurrents of that 10,000 year norm is still present. So that subconscious thing that you're talking about, it's also still present in society. So there is an
In our DNA.
expectation socially to be, yeah, in the DNA, you could say there is that uh, natural inclination in society, amongst peers, amongst friends, family, There's that expectation that's put on each party in the relationship, that to play that role, you know, to play the quote unquote norm societal role. So even if they are fairly adjusted to being, let's say, assertive in the flip, um, society at large, family, friends will say, don't you want these XYZ? That's not so assertive, and that may be the undercurrent of that subconscious
Good point.
drive, is this pressure from all around.
Good
Even if it's
point.
not like a lineage thing and it's just part of nature, it's very pervasive in society. To change that and to be happy in with imbalance in society is very difficult. It's very difficult to have basically people shooting arrows at you as far as their opinions go of what you're doing or how you are.
Yeah,
Um,
we let that message in, and
yeah,
it's difficult to let those messages go. And hopefully, they're from good people who
right,
mean well for you. But many times, as you know, you get messages from people that don't mean so well for you, and you've got to decipher.
right. No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's challenging times, and I know that there's, again, we're speaking in grand generalities. Now, with you've done a lot of relationship coaching, and
Yes.
you done programs or events that you find to be very valuable?
I've actually spoken all over North America, but not recently, especially with the tragedy that we had here, and wondering what was going to go on in the world. So what I did the last few years is I wrote these books,
Yeah,
and so it gave me a time to write and edit and write and edit. I'm going to keep going, write
yeah,
and edit, and I can go on
right,
forever.
yeah,
Uh, but what's the time now is the time now is to get back together again.
right,
The time now is to get off the Zoom, get
right.
off the computer, and meet each other. And the best way to do that, I think, when you talk about speed dating, for some people, oh, speed dating, they get the wrong idea,
Right.
because I can put together 20 terrific men and
Yeah.
20 terrific women in a room, and they spend 2 or 3 minutes talking to each other. There's going to be some sparks with
I
a
was gonna
one
say,
or two or three, and
right.
all they have to do is say, "Did you feel what I feel? Why don't we exchange information?" You don't do that with everybody, but
Yeah.
if you feel like there's a possibility, exchange information and take it up next week and the week after.
Right.
What a
Right.
great way to meet people in one night, quality people.
Yeah.
Uh, so I could do speed dating all over the country, and I
Right.
would. You want me to come and do speed dating in your city, your
Yeah.
town? Email me, love coach, LUV coach1 at gmail.com. And under the right circumstances, let's bring people together, because the
Right.
time is now. The other day I did an event and 80 people showed up.
Wow. Wow.
Shows me that people are ready. People want this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think people are open to it because, one thing that I feel is a benefit that people are getting off of the um, dating apps is they're getting more comfortable putting that portion of themselves out there and letting that part of them be known.
Excellent.
So that when it comes to like doing something in person, of course, there might be the butterflies, and why wouldn't there be? But they already have kind of exposed this portion of themselves. My picture has been seen almost like in a popularity sense. There's a part of them that's already like a known portion, so they can feel a little bit more like, what, let's try this thing. Let's try the speed dating. Because even in speed dating, it's very similar to the setup of Tinder with the swiping. You know, going through, you're
Except
reading a
you're except
profile.
you're 3 feet away from each other,
Right.
and
Yeah,
rather
real
than
sparks.
yeah, rather than 6,000 miles.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Used to love a show. It was called Millionaire Matchmaker, and she did
Pa-
something very similar.
Patty Stanger.
Yeah. She did
She was
something very
terrific.
similar to that, right? Yeah, very strong energy. But I don't know that she did 20 guys, 20 girls. I think it was like a select
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
or something like that.
She'd take her clients, two or three, and she'd set them up with 20 or 30 people.
Right,
And you spend a little bit of time with each person and pick out one or two. And it's the
right.
same thing,
Same thing.
right? If
Yeah.
someone hired me, I would do the same thing for them.
Okay. Well, that's great. See, and that's a very valuable thing to provide, you know,
Sure.
because it is that, people really have a lot of trouble connecting. And I personally blame the internet for that. That portion that is
Absolutely.
exposed is not really who that person is. You
Absolutely.
can be fooled by the picture, but be fooled by the all good things that are posted. Um, it's too impersonal. And I'd say it makes it very hard for people to bridge the gap from the internet to the in-person space. And that's where I
Again,
think you'd come in handy, you know?
if people aren't getting together and they're alone and they're lonely, they've got to re-educate themselves and figure out you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting something different to happen. We
Right.
know what that is. You have to do something that makes sense.
Yeah,
And sometimes you have to ask advice. Hey, why not ask a relationship coach?
exactly. Right.
You want to save yourself months or years of going in circles and circles and confusion and not meeting anybody. Come to a relationship coach who
Right.
can help you in days or weeks change
Yep.
things that don't work. And but people have to get their egos out of the way. Hey, what do businesses do when they run into a problem when they're not making enough money in a certain part of their business? They call in an expert.
They call a consultant. Yeah,
They don't
absolutely.
waste their time
No, right.
wondering what to do and how to do it. What are we doing wrong? No, they invite
Right.
someone in, an unbiased person in to tell them what they're doing and then what they can do to remedy it. It's the same
Yep.
thing with relationships.
Yeah,
Why not have a relationship coach?
exactly. Well, and I find that, there's a lot of different types of coaches that do a lot of different things. Um, I interview a lot of coaches that do, hit different branches of a person, whether it be relationships or the mind or, communication. And what I think is probably that my best advice to anybody is that if you're finding that you're having a stumbling block, there's probably somebody that's a specialist that handles whatever that stumbling block is, and in all aspects of life. Relationship coach. Most people don't realize that they are having an issue with finding somebody,
You're
and
right.
they don't think I can reach out and find somebody to help me with this situation, but that is what you do, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, when I work with those 6,000 people on the internet, most of them came away saying, I never thought of that.
right.
Thank you so much. The forest was so thick with
Yeah,
trees, I couldn't see anything, and you really helped me because
yeah,
it takes an unbiased person. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm
right,
going to tell you what's best for you. You might not like it because, hey, nobody should know more than I do about relations. How does someone know more than I do about relationships? How about I spent half of my life studying it and you
right,
spent 95% of your life going after your careers
right,
and
right.
5% towards your relationships?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and that's, I think, people ask their buddy, ask their friend for advice, and these are people that are, of course, that know them very well, but maybe don't have their own life in a relationship figured out.
Exactly.
It is that third party that you really want, that outside source.
Absolutely. It's
Right.
preferable.
Yeah.
And people spend money on Starbucks coffees and go drinking and go out to dinner
Right.
all the time, and they come home miserable, alone and lonely. Well, invest in yourself for God's sakes.
Right. Yeah. Now your new book, that's the Lost Souls book. Is that the new book?
It's what was called Body Traders
Body
before,
Traders. Okay.
and it's a Lost Souls Guide to Love.
It's getting remarketed.
Yeah, yeah, because some very special people suggested it. I said, I can't think of a new title for these books. I'm so glued to these
Right.
titles. I've had this title for 10 years. I can't come up with a new title, but
Yeah.
I had some really good people make these suggestions. Oh, wow. Pretty good titles. I
Yeah.
like that.
Because that's their job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Would you say that your book is a good start for people to kind of get, some ideas, some tips as far as, finding love?
Absolutely. Any adult
Yeah.
older than 18,
Yeah.
and you could be 75, because I know plenty of 75-year-olds that are still out there looking big time,
Yeah.
but they're going with the same faulty information. They're going with the same bad habits.
Right. Right.
And this may sound terrible, but I don't want people to die alone. And
Right.
if they're going doing the same mistakes and they're alone, there's going to be a lot of people alone on their deathbeds, and I don't want to see that happening. Just
Yeah.
you don't have to go for the hot sex and the hot romance that we
Right.
did when we're 20 and 30 and 40s. Hey, what's wrong with being around someone that you like,
Right.
who
Right.
likes you, who cares about you, who you can go to the movies with, who you can go to the beach with, who you can go to dinner with? You
Right.
just like each other. You just trust each other. That's what people should be looking for when they go to these speed dating events. And we do sometimes over 50 and over. Don't be
Okay.
asking them if they're hot in the sack.
Right. Yeah.
You
That
know,
wouldn't be your not good
if
advice.
you didn't get that out in your 20s and 30s,
Right.
this is no time to
Right.
pick up
Right.
with that.
Right. And you're looking for a partner. Looking for
Yeah.
somebody to be there with you.
Absolutely. All you hear is people say, I wish I had someone to watch TV with.
Yeah.
I wish I
Yeah.
had someone to take a walk with. They're out there,
Right.
but you got to change your mind. You got to change your focus. And you
Yeah.
have to realize, we have 7 or 8 chakras going
Yeah.
in our bodies. And when we're younger, we got these lower ones going boom, ba boom, ba boom. But when
Yeah.
we get older, it's got to be how we feel, what
Right.
we say, a third eye, crown, higher consciousness. That's
Yeah.
what's got to be in there. And I
Yeah.
just hope I can work with people. I can help a lot of people with in a lot of different ways. I hope they contact me. Love Coach,
Yeah.
LUV Coach 1 at gmail.com. Let's get started on your life helping you. This is the time. Don't wait. What are you waiting for?
Right. That's fantastic. Exactly. No time to wait. Yeah. That's great. Well, Bruce, that's a fantastic message, and really glad to have you on today.
Thank you.
And the ability to get your message out there and to help people find their connection. I think that's something that a lot of people search for most of their life, is looking for that one person that they can just feel complete with. And that's a very valuable work that you do.
Thank you.
Is helping people unify.
And
So
I
I
like
really,
what you're doing too. And I like the way you do it. And I like what you talk about. I think we're very aligned, you and I.
yeah.
And that's what made this show kind of magical, that we're on the same wavelength. We're on the same path. You've got a heck of a lot of knowledge. And I
Well,
appreciate you having me on the show.
thank you so much, Bruce. Appreciate that. Yeah, have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye bye.